Germans were shocked by Eisenhower's tool of victory, the bazooka. A new weapon emerges. November 8, 1942, Sidi Farak Beach, Algeria. As the first waves of American infantry waded ashore during Operation Torch, few of them realized they were carrying a weapon that would transform the nature of warfare. Hidden in crates stamped secret were 5,000 newly developed M1 rocket launchers, soon to earn the nickname Bazooka. Though crude in appearance, this $25 steel tube would soon rewrite the rules of armored warfare. In less than 2 years, it forced the German Wehrmacht to reorganize its armored doctrine and spurred desperate efforts to copy the design. For the first time in history, ordinary infantrymen, after just a few hours of training, could stand against tanks. What had once required heavy artillery, complex engineering, and elite crews could now be accomplished by 2 soldiers with a shoulder-fired launcher. The bazooka shifted American troops from being victims of armor to tank hunters, changing not only battlefield tactics but also psychology. The improvised beginning. The story of the bazooka's creation began months earlier at Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, on May 6, 1942. Colonel Leslie Skinner and Lieutenant Edward Yule arrived to test experimental anti-tank concepts. The launcher they demonstrated that day was not the product of years of research. It had been cobbled together that very morning. Yule had pulled a steel tube from a scrap pile, by chance, the perfect diameter for a rocket. The crude sights were bent from a wire coat hanger. To fire the weapon, he donned a welder's mask, unsure whether the backblast might blow up in his face. Meanwhile, the Army Ordnance Department had scheduled demonstrations of British-designed spigot mortars, huge, complex devices weighing over 100 pounds. Senior officers, including Major General Gladion Barnes, Chief of Research and Engineering, paid little attention to Yule's makeshift launcher at first. But results spoke louder than appearances. 5 spigot mortars fired at a moving M3 Stuart tank from 150 yards. Not one hit. Crews struggled to aim and traverse the bulky weapons. Then Yule stepped forward with his scrap metal tube. His first shot slammed into the tank's side. Within 5 seconds, he reloaded and struck it again. General Barnes examined the contraption and laughed. It looks like Bob Burns's bazooka. A reference to the comedian's odd homemade musical instrument. The nickname stuck. Within minutes, Barnes ordered 5,000 units into immediate production. From scrap metal to mass production. The speed of production was astonishing. By October 1942, General Electric and other contractors were manufacturing 5,000 launchers per month. Each required just 20 pounds of steel, simple welding, and inexpensive electrical parts. Cost per launcher, about $25. Cost per rocket, M6 heat, about $8. Specifications were equally simple. 54-inch seamless steel tube, 2.36-inch caliber, 13 pounds in weight. Electrical ignition from 2 dry cell batteries. Captain Franklin Johnson of Fort Benning summed it up best in his training report. We could train a man to use the bazooka in 1 afternoon. The same soldier would need weeks to master a 37mm anti-tank gun. 2 soldiers with a bazooka could now go anywhere the infantry went, and that changed everything. Trial by fire in North Africa. Operation Torch, November 8, 1942. When American and British forces, over 107,000 strong, stormed the beaches of North Africa, they carried with them the brand-new M1 bazooka. Yet there was a fatal flaw. No one had been trained to use it. General Dwight D. Eisenhower discovered, on the eve of invasion, that the weapons had been shipped in sealed crates marked secret, with explicit orders not to open them until the operation began. No manuals. No training. No live-fire practice. The result was predictable chaos. Many soldiers struggled to figure out the bazooka's operation under enemy fire. Early rockets had been damaged by moisture during the sea voyage. Many failed to launch or detonated prematurely. The 509th Parachute Infantry Regiment reported firing 20 rockets in combat. Only 7 worked properly. Despite these setbacks, success stories began to emerge. On November 10, 1942, the 1st Armored Division reported in its combat log that a bazooka team destroyed 2 French Renault tanks near Port Lyautey. The entry was blunt. Weapon effective when functioning properly. Germans capture the secret. The bazooka's real test came not against the French, but against the Germans. During the Battle of Kasserine Pass, February 14 to 24, 1943, elements of Rommel's Afrika Korps smashed through inexperienced American lines. As the U.S. II Corps retreated in disorder, the Germans seized vast amounts of abandoned equipment. Among the haul were 5 intact M1 bazookas and around 20 M6 rockets. By February 28, 1943, these captured weapons had been shipped to Berlin and handed over to the Wehrmacht's testing facility at Kummersdorf. German engineers were impressed. Weight: 6 kilograms, light and portable. Armor penetration: up to 80 millimeters at 100 meters. Ease of manufacture: could be mass-produced with minimal industrial requirements. The German assessment, preserved in Bundesarchiv records, concluded bluntly: the American rocket launcher represents a simple, practical solution to infantry anti-tank capability. Berlin wasted no time. By increasing the warhead diameter from 60 millimeters to 88 millimeters, they created the Raketen Panzerbuchs 43, better known as the Panzerschreck. Production began by September 1943, and by war's end, over 289,000 units had been made. From improvised tube to trusted tank killer. Operation Husky, the invasion of Sicily, July 10, 1943. By the time American troops stormed Sicily's beaches, the bazooka had already been improved. Soldiers now carried the M1A1 model, featuring sturdier electrical contacts and the more reliable M6A1 rocket. This was no longer an untested experiment, it was becoming a standard weapon. And in Sicily, the bazooka proved its worth. Near Biscari, a team from the 82nd Airborne Division scored an extraordinary hit on a German Tiger tank, firing directly through the driver's vision slot, one of its few weak points. While this was exceptional marksmanship, rather than typical performance, it demonstrated the weapon's potential. The Hermann Göring Panzer Division's own war diary recorded the shock. Enemy infantry equipped with rocket weapons capable of destroying armor at 100 to 150 meters. Tank commanders must exercise increased caution in urban areas. Colonel James Gavin of the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment summed up the weapon's psychological effect. The bazooka has given the American infantrymen confidence against enemy armor. In Sicily, we destroyed 17 German tanks with bazookas. The psychological effect exceeds even the physical destruction. The Italian campaign. The bazooka becomes a problem solver. Italy's mountainous terrain and medieval towns created ideal conditions for the bazooka. Soldiers quickly realized that its utility extended far beyond anti-tank combat. In street fighting, bazooka teams blasted through walls and fortified houses, avoiding deadly ambushes in narrow streets. Canadian military records note that these mouse-holing tactics became standard practice. Against bunkers and machine gun nests, the bazooka's explosive warheads gave infantrymen portable firepower that had previously required artillery. By late 1943, American production was surging, 20,000 bazookas per month. The M9 model was introduced, designed to be broken into 2 pieces for airborne troops and equipped with a new magneto-ignition system, eliminating unreliable batteries. Paired with the improved M6A3 rocket, which had a blunt nose to prevent ricochets off sloped armor, the bazooka had matured into a dependable, versatile weapon, forcing the Germans to change. By early 1944, every U.S. infantry battalion was armed with 24 to 36 bazookas. The weapon was so widespread that it forced the Wehrmacht to alter its armor doctrine. A German training directive from December 1943 ordered that tanks could no longer enter urban areas without infantry support, and that all buildings had to be cleared before armor advanced. Crews began welding spare track links, sandbags, and even pouring concrete onto their tanks for protection. From late 1943 onward, many German vehicles were coated with Simmerit paste, partly in response to the growing threat of infantry-carried shape-charge weapons like the bazooka. The message was clear. The days of blitzkrieg-style armored breakthroughs were over. Normandy and the Hedge Wars. D-Day, June 6, 1944. As 156,000 Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy, thousands of bazooka teams were among them. They carried the M9A1 model, now equipped with an optical sight for improved accuracy. The dense bocage country of Normandy, thick hedgerows forming natural defensive walls, proved to be perfect terrain for bazooka ambushes. First Army records show that in the 6 weeks after D-Day, bazookas accounted for 12% of German armored vehicle losses in the American sector. The 29th Infantry Division reported that concealed bazooka teams hidden in hedgerows were especially effective at hitting tanks in their vulnerable side and rear armor. German tank commanders quickly became wary of advancing without infantry screens. Every hedgerow could hide a pair of American soldiers with a weapon capable of stopping their advance. America's production versus Germany's response. While the Germans fielded the Panzerschreck, technically superior with its larger 88mm warhead, capable of penetrating 160mm of armor, compared to the Bazooka's 100mm. Production told a different story. Panzerschreck, 289,151 built during the entire war. Bazooka, over 400,000 built by August 1944 alone. The difference lay in manufacturing philosophy. Bazooka, simple, cheap, and fast to produce, $25 each, 2.4 man-hours of labor. Panzerschreck, more powerful but heavier, more expensive, 150 Reichsmarks, 24 man-hours of labor, and harder to supply in large numbers. For every German rocket launcher produced, the U.S. was producing nearly 2. The Battle of the Bulge, Winter's Trial. The ultimate test of the bazooka came during the Ardennes Offensive, December 1944 to January 1945. In freezing conditions, the weapon's reliability was pushed to the limit. Older M1A1 models still in service suffered from battery failures, forcing soldiers to warm the cells inside their coats. Cold weather altered rocket propellant burn, reducing accuracy and range. Yet despite these problems, bazooka teams remained lethal. 99th Infantry Division interviews documented Technical Sergeant Donald Bracken destroying a Panther tank at 75 yards with a shot into the engine deck. 18 Airborne Corps reports credit bazooka teams with destroying or disabling 89 German armored vehicles during the battle. Even in sub-zero conditions, the weapon was proving its worth. Innovation in the field. Some soldiers even pushed the bazooka beyond its intended use. One of the most remarkable cases was Major Charles Carpenter of the 4th Armored Division. Nicknamed Bazooka Charlie, he mounted 6 bazookas to his tiny L for Grasshopper reconnaissance plane. September 1944, destroyed 2 Panthers near Aracourt. October 1944, destroyed a Panzer IV. November 1944, destroyed 3 more armored vehicles. His improvised tank-busting plane earned him a Silver Star and proved just how versatile the weapon could be. Mass production, maximum impact. By 1945, the bazooka had become one of the most common weapons in the U.S. arsenal. American industry had perfected the model of cheap, simple, mass-produced firepower. Production statistics, U.S. Army Ordnance records. M1, 1942, 112,790 units. M1A1, 1943, 60,000 units. M9, late 1943, 26,087 units. M9A1, 1944, 277, 800 units. M18, 1945, aluminum model 500 units. Total launchers, for 76, 600. Rocket production, 1942, 200, 000. 1943, 2.8 million. 1944, 8.5 million. 1945, for 0.6 million. Total rockets, 15.6 million. For comparison, bazooka cost, $1.19, 25 per launcher, $8.85 per rocket. German Panzer IV tank, 103,000 Reichsmarks, $41,000. Tiger I tank, 250,000 Reichsmarks, $100,000. For the cost of 1 Sherman tank, $75,000, the U.S. could arm infantry with 3,000 bazookas and 20,000 rockets. The economic advantage was overwhelming. Battlefield effectiveness. U.S. Army analysis in 1945 measured how the bazooka stacked up against other anti-tank methods. Engagement range, average 75 yards. Hit probability, 50 yards, 85%. 100 yards, 42%. 150 yards, 18%. Armor penetration, M6A3 rocket 3.5 for inches, 89 to 102 millimeters. Tank destruction in the European theater, First Army records. Destroyed by other tanks, 38%. Destroyed by anti-tank guns, 31%. Destroyed by aircraft, 14%. Destroyed by bazookas, 12%. Destroyed by mines, 5%. While bazookas accounted for only 12% of recorded kills, these statistics understate their impact. Many German crews abandoned tanks once bazooka teams appeared, leaving vehicles intact but useless, forcing a German tactical shift. Captured Wehrmacht documents show how seriously German commanders regarded the bazooka threat. Directive 43/18, December 1943, ordered tanks to never enter urban areas without infantry screens. SS Panzer Division Memo, March 1944 warned that American rocket launchers present in every infantry unit. Speed and shock tactics no longer viable. This forced German armor to fight more cautiously, losing the freedom of maneuver that had powered the Blitzkrieg. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring later admitted in interrogation that American bazookas had forced fundamental changes in German tactics. General Heinz Guderian wrote after the war that infantry anti-tank weapons like the bazooka had invalidated the independent operation of armor. Allied distribution. Through Lend-Lease, bazookas spread far beyond American hands. Soviet Union, 8,000 units. United Kingdom, 12,000 units. Free French forces, 15,000 units. Chinese nationalists, 3,000 units. Other Allied nations, 600 units. While the Soviets preferred their own rifles and later the RPG-2, the bazooka's influence was unmistakable. It helped inspire post-war rocket weapons across the world. Beyond Europe, the Pacific and post-war legacy. While the bazooka earned its fame in Europe, it also proved invaluable against Japan in the Pacific theater. Unlike German armor, Japanese tanks were relatively light, but the real challenge was fortified caves, bunkers, and pillboxes. The bazooka's rockets, especially the incendiary types, were perfect for that role. Marine Corps records from Saipan, July 1944. Bazookas destroyed 28 Japanese tanks. Countless bunkers and cave defenses eliminated. At Iwo Jima, February, 1945. The 5th Marine Division fired 1,847 bazooka rockets in just 6 weeks. White phosphorus rounds were especially valued for clearing caves and fortifications. The bazooka was no longer just an anti-tank weapon. It had become a universal infantry tool, adaptable to almost any combat situation. Into Korea, the Super Bazooka. After World War II, the bazooka remained in service. But when the Korean War erupted in 1950, U.S. forces quickly discovered that the older M9A1 model was inadequate against Soviet-made T-34-85 tanks supplied to North Korea. Worse, leftover World War II rockets had degraded in storage, reducing effectiveness even further. The solution came fast. Within 90 days, engineers developed and deployed the M20 Super Bazooka, firing a 3.5-inch rocket capable of penetrating over 11 inches of armor. Marine Sergeant Robert Bennett wrote after the Battle of Pusan, September 1950. The new 3.5-inch bazooka stopped T-34's cold, first shot, first kill at 125 yards. This rapid adaptation showed the strength of the bazooka concept, a simple design that could be scaled up as needed. The birth of a global standard. The bazooka wasn't just an American weapon. It set the template for nearly every portable anti-tank system that followed. USM-72 Law, light anti-tank weapon. Swedish Carl Gustaf recoilless rifle. Soviet RPG series, RPG-2, RPG-7, etc. Dozens of variants and copies worldwide. By lowering the barrier to anti-tank combat, the bazooka ensured that no armored vehicle could dominate the battlefield without fear of infantry ambush. The weapon that changed the battlefield. By the end of World War II, nearly 500,000 bazookas and over 15 million rockets had been produced. What began as an improvised tube with coat hanger sights had become one of the most influential weapons of the 20th century. Its true power lay not in technical sophistication, but in simplicity plus mass production. Any factory with basic welding tools could build them. Any soldier could learn to fire one in a single afternoon. Entire battalions carried dozens, transforming infantry from tank prey into tank hunters. This democratization of firepower broke the psychological hold tanks once had over infantry. As one U.S. training report put it, tank panic has been replaced by aggressive tank hunting. Shifting German doctrine. The Germans, who entered the war with unmatched armored superiority, were forced to adapt. By 1944, every hedgerow, street corner, or pile of rubble could hide bazooka teams. Blitzkrieg's lightning thrusts were slowed to cautious, methodical advances. Captured German documents confirmed their frustration. Tanks required infantry escorts in cities. Improvised armor, track links, sandbags, concrete became standard. New coatings like Cimmerit were applied to counter shape charge weapons. The mighty Tiger and Panther tanks, symbols of German engineering, now had to fear cheap steel tubes wielded by teenage American GIs. More than a weapon, the bazooka's significance went far beyond battlefield performance. Industrial victory, It embodied the American strategy of producing simple, good enough weapons in overwhelming quantities, outpacing German quality-focused production. Economic efficiency. For the price of one tank, the U.S. could arm thousands of infantry with rocket launchers. Tactical innovation. It gave squads independence and forced new doctrines for both attackers and defenders. Psychological transformation. Soldiers no longer felt helpless against armor. They carried the means to destroy it. The bazooka's enduring legacy. Every modern military owes part of its doctrine to the bazooka. The idea that individual soldiers should carry weapons capable of defeating armored vehicles remains central to infantry organization worldwide. From the U.S. M72 law to the Russian RPG-7, the lineage is unmistakable. Even today, portable anti-tank systems reflect the bazooka's principle: cheap, mass-producible, and effective. At the German Tank Museum in Munster, the official placard beneath an American M1 launcher reads, "The American bazooka revolutionized anti-tank warfare. Simple, cheap, and effective, it could be used by any soldier with minimal training. Its widespread presence neutralized German armored superiority." Final reflection. In the end, the bazooka was more than a weapon, it was a statement. It proved that democracy and industrial ingenuity could triumph over engineering elitism. That ordinary soldiers, armed with simple tools, could topple the most fearsome war machines of their age. From the beaches of Normandy to the rubble of Berlin, the bazooka gave American soldiers the power to fight back on equal terms. It was, as Eisenhower called it, a true tool of victory. Epilogue. From scrap tube to global legacy. The bazooka's story did not end with World War II, or even with Korea. Its influence rippled through the entire Cold War and continues into the 21st century. Cold War descendants. The U.S. military quickly moved beyond the original M1, M9 family of launchers. M20 Super Bazooka, Korea, 1953.5-inch rockets capable of destroying the Soviet T-34-85. M72 Law, 1963 lightweight, disposable launcher, every soldier could carry one. At-4 and later Javelin, modern era highly advanced, but still built on the bazooka's core principle: give the infantryman the power to stop armor. Meanwhile, Soviet engineers took the concept further. RPG-2, 1949, heavily inspired by bazooka principles. RPG-7, 1961, the most iconic shoulder-fired anti-tank weapon in history, still in service with dozens of armies today. In a sense, the bazooka ignited an arms race of man-portable anti-tank weapons that continues to this day. A symbol of industrial warfare. The bazooka also stood as proof of a broader truth about modern war. In an industrial age, quantity and adaptability beat complexity and perfection. Germany built the technically superior Panzerschreck and Panzerfaust, but could never match American production numbers. The U.S., by contrast, accepted good enough designs and pushed them into mass production, ensuring every infantry squad had tank-killing power. This philosophy carried into later conflicts. From Vietnam to Afghanistan, U.S. forces relied on mass-produced, soldier-friendly weapons that emphasized ease of training, simplicity, and battlefield reliability. More than steel. Beyond its engineering and tactical role, the bazooka carried symbolic weight. To the Germans, it was a rude awakening. Even their most feared armored divisions could be stopped by two poorly trained GIs with a $25 tube. To American soldiers, it was a confidence booster, proof that they were not helpless before tanks. To history, it was a reminder that innovation often begins with something improvised, ugly, and simple, but powerful in practice. A lasting legacy. Today, every major army equips its infantry with a descendant of the bazooka. Museums across the world display the M1 launcher not only as a weapon, but as a symbol of American ingenuity and industrial might. As one post-war U.S. Army study concluded in 1962, no single weapon changed battlefield dynamics more than the bazooka. It democratized anti-tank warfare, giving infantry the power once reserved for artillery and armor. From its humble beginning, an improvised tube with coat-hanger sights fired in Maryland in 1942, the bazooka reshaped warfare. It turned ordinary infantrymen into tank hunters. It forced armored warfare to evolve. And it stood as living proof that, in modern war, the simplest idea can change the world.